The man had his face covered in feces. You can't get any worse than that. I mean, if you're going to. Hello folks, welcome back to Medieval Mondays. Before we begin, I apologize in advance to anybody who is from Byzantine or the Eastern Roman Empire for butchering the pronunciation of any of the names, so I'm gonna try not to say most of them. We're talking about Sceleros today and George Maniakes. We're gonna continue the series on, so if you guys haven't watched the first video, here's a link so you can click it and watch the first video. We're not gonna be going in any particular order. Today we're gonna talk about Sceleros, one of George Maniakes' powerful rivals. Now, you couldn't get a better fight between two people, a stylistic match. Like, you know, nowadays when I watch combat sports, they'll say it's the wrestler or the grappler against the striker who's going to win, or the guy who has very good hand striking versus the guy who has very good leg striking, the guy who has good head movement against the guy who just rushes forward, takes shots, and throws punches. So they're different styles, and it's interesting to watch them match up against each other. And this is a stylistic fight on a political level between two men. You have George Maniakes, who's a lifelong soldier who built everything that he had through hard work, through accomplishing tasks and goals that everyone else said was either impossible or very hard to do. If somebody couldn't get it done, he was the guy you called to get it done. You know, the handyman, the hands-on guy. Sceleros was the person from the imperial court. He was very intelligent, he was very smart, he was very cunning, he was very ambitious, he was very ruthless. Both men, of course, were, you know, ruthless in the line of work that they had to do, but Sceleros was more the guy who would swindle with his mouth and manipulate people to do things for him. Maniakes was the man who would train himself, look at his enemy, look at his goal, and get it done. So very different stylistic, and it's an interesting conflict between these two that goes on. So Sceleros was Maniakes' rival in court. He didn't like the fame that Maniakes carried with him as a soldier. Obviously, you know, that brings you a lot of gifts from the emperor. He every time he had a chance to talk about Maniakes, he would downplay his successes. We talked earlier last time about the campaign in Sicily to regain it. A lot of those gains were quickly lost because of what happened to Maniakes afterwards, but that's a story for another day. But when those gains were lost, not at all Maniakes' fault, Sceleros brings up in court, see, he can't succeed, he can't hold anything he takes for you, Emperor. What good is this guy? Get rid of him. Things like that. You know, of course, he wouldn't outright say it that way. Like I said, he was manipulative, he was smart, he was cunning. But that's exactly what he was doing, just with different words. He was downplaying his successes and saying he wasn't useful. He was also the land rival, because, you know, back then when you would win wars and you would win battles for the king, you were usually rewarded land, because land, people understood that money was more important than land. Even today it is. You know, you can't eat dollars, you can't eat gold coins, you can't eat diamonds, but you can take land, you can plant food on it, you can grow it. So, and also land is the way that you made your wealth back then. If you had land that was covered in iron, you could be a smith and have it that way. If you had land that was covered in clay, you could build houses, so on and so on. You guys get the idea. I have to keep on talking about land. But land was important, and you could be rewarded land. Maniakes was, of course, rewarded land for a lot of things that he did. And in Cappadocia, my bad, is where Sceleros was, and his lands were on the border of Maniakes. So they were very close at home as far as living conditions go, even though that Maniakes was a soldier, he would be in the field, and Sceleros would be in court. So the final conflict between these two came down to this. Sceleros wanted to get rid of Maniakes. He wanted to have him branded as a traitor, and this had already happened to Maniakes before. Like I said before, people in court didn't like him, so he had been branded a traitor before and actually imprisoned. He was, when the Normans began to rampage through Sicily and Italy, he was actually released from prison. He had been in prison during this time. He was released to deal with that problem. When this happened, Sceleros seduced Maniakes' wife, which of course made Maniakes extremely angry. Then he had his beautiful sister seduce the emperor and tell him to get rid of Maniakes and strip him of all his titles that he'd been given to him and actually put him back in prison. So he couldn't just strip him of his title right away, you know, via letter. Oh, you're stripped of all your titles. He actually called Maniakes back to court, and Maniakes knew he'd be stripped of his title. Now, Sceleros at this point had for years, this, like I said, this was the end of the conflict, but they had gone back and forth time and time again. Not physically, of course, just where they would outright fight. There had been physical confrontation face to face, but he hadn't cut him up or anything. But he was always his rival in court. He had seduced his wife, and he had gotten his sister to seduce the emperor to finally put a punishment on Maniakes where he would actually be like a death penalty. Previously, when he'd been captured, he actually been spared the death penalty as a traitor because of his close friendship with the emperor. But now he knew if he was recalled, he would more than likely be executed. So Maniakes obviously didn't like this guy. He had every reason to not do so. So he went, grabbed him, had his face, eyes, mouth, and nose stuffed with feces before slowly torturing him to death. And of course, none of this was legal, so right after that, Maniakes is basically an outlaw and goes on another adventure and makes a decision to take on Constantinople itself. But that's a story for another day. But this just shows the type of guy Maniakes is. He's not the guy to be cross and misused. And I think what's interesting about a lot of characters from history, whether the stories are true or not, is that they do things that we would either like to do or that we know they have the right to do. Because people would argue that's not the right thing to do, but they have the right to do it. This person has manipulated people to think that they're a failure, taking things that are theirs and seducing his wife, getting other people to punish you for when you should be rewarded for all the goal that you accomplished, and just tries to take everything from you and isn't tough enough to do it face to face. You know, he wouldn't fight a duel with Maniakes. He wouldn't fight Maniakes on the battlefield. He basically was doing what he could. He used his strengths, like, you know, manipulation, cunningness. Those are all excellent skills to have in a courtroom, but they're not going to protect you on the battlefield. You know, talking a lot. Mike Tyson was known for saying, as a matter of fact, I was talking to a gentleman the other day about history, and he said, like Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And Scaleros understood that, and he couldn't stop Maniakes. Obviously, Maniakes wound up having him killed. But I thought that's a very interesting anecdote to show what kind of man Maniakes was. You know, definitely not somebody to be crossed, and definitely not somebody you want to get in the way of. And if you didn't have any protection against a powerful enemy like that, you know, you don't want to poke that lion. As there's a saying, you know, don't poke the lion as it passes. But he poked the lion, and the lion dealt with him. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. This is a brief video. Next time we talk about Maniakes, we're going to be going into some of his earlier battles from history, breaking them down bit by bit, and I'm going to save the ending of what happens next to Maniakes for a later date. So thanks for watching. Subscribe if you like to. Like I said, I can't pronounce most of these names because I'll probably butcher the pronunciation, but I am going to list the names right here. I'll also leave the link in the description below to the article that I read for some of this research, and the additional links to other articles I'll be using for the future research I will continue to add to each video as I go on. Thanks for watching, and have a good day, and see y'all next time.